Alright guys, back with another video for you today. And today I'm discussing a fragrance from the house of Penhaligons called Halfeti Cedar. This is the latest flanker from their very popular collection of fragrances which launched with the original Halfeti here. And then there was also an additional flanker that came out before Halfeti Cedar, Halfeti Leather. So I've got a review comparison video on the channel of Halfeti with Halfeti Leather. But today, even though it's mostly about Halfeti Cedar, I'm going to discuss Halfeti and Halfeti Leather and how they compare with one another. So today, all about the Halfeti collection of fragrances from Penhaligons, and we're focusing on Halfeti Cedar. So if you want to find out about these, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. Yeah, today I'm talking about Halfeti Cedar, mostly, but my first introduction to this collection, of course, was Halfeti. There used to be a perfume shop here, a Penhaligons perfume shop, and the shop used to use this, some kind of an airing system where I think Halfeti was airing out the air in the store. So when I would walk by their store, I would smell Halfeti. So I got pretty familiar with that fragrance, and I'm pretty used to it. I know and I can recognize it pretty much a mile away because it's a very, very familiar fragrance. And to me, I think Halfeti is that combination of oud with rose. But there's also leathery notes and incensey, smoky notes and spices in there as well. I felt like that particular fragrance didn't have lots of rose, but you can still pick up the rose in it. But what they've done is they've created two additional flankers, and using some of the other notes and amplifying them. In the case of Halfeti Leather with the leather amplified, and in this case, Halfeti Cedar with the cedar amplified. But you know what? Out of the three, I'm enjoying Halfeti Cedar the most. I'm enjoying what they've done with it. They've added some stuff that I really, really enjoy in fragrances. And I really am experiencing a great creation, a great flanker to, I think, the very popular original fragrance, Halfeti. So I'll let you know all about Halfeti Cedar, but before I do, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed to the channel, please do click the subscribe button below, and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So how many of you are fans of the house of Penhaligons fragrances? I first discovered Penhaligons way, way before I have ever started doing any videos. In the latter part of the 90s, I discovered Penhaligons through a friend who I have no connection to anymore, from a place I used to work at while I was going to college. Saks Fifth Avenue sold Penhaligons, and I first discovered the brand there, buying several of their fragrances. So fast forward to now, they are still around. They make great fragrances. They are a classic British house, and they do have some great offerings for fragrances. If you don't know the house, you should definitely check out some of my videos on the channel for this house. But let's discuss Halfeti Cedar. So Halfeti Cedar is considered a woody, spicy fragrance. It's a 2020 launch, and it's created by Christian Provenzano, the perfumer, who has his own separate line of fragrances. But he also created the original in 2015, Halfeti the original, and then Halfeti Leather came out in 2019. So 4 years later, they came out with Halfeti Leather, and 1 year after Halfeti Leather, we have Halfeti Cedar. So this one features notes of cedar. Obviously, it's focusing on cedar, and cedar was found in the original Halfeti. But with the Halfeti Cedar, they not only feature Atlas cedar, they also feature Virginia cedar with labdanum, dried fruits, rum, saffron, cinnamon, cardamom, minerals, and vanilla. So the notes are great, right? I love dried fruits, and they work great with boozy notes. So this particular fragrance to me goes in the boozy, fruity direction, and that's what I like about it, because I really love this dried fruits combination with boozy notes. I think it's a match made in heaven, and it does work great here. But in the end, this particular fragrance is very, very woody, especially focusing on the cedar, and you do experience a very woody experience here. But along the way, there's lots of warmth. The fruits add warmth because they're dried fruits, and a combination with the rum there and the labdanum, which creates this ambery touch. So you're experiencing kind of like a boozy, fruity amber experience with this one. And of course we've got some vanilla in here anyway, so it's a very warm, gooey experience contrasted with the cedar notes in here, which is the star of the show. But I like what they've done here, because for me, cedar as a note can get boring, and woody fragrances are not my top of loved fragrances. If you guys caught my notes focused videos ranking my favorite notes, cedar was not in that video because I feel like cedar can get boring. And here, what he's done with the perfume, adding the dried fruits, adding the labdanum, adding the rum, which takes us to a place where you can enjoy woody fragrances, because cedar can get one-dimensional for me. It really does. And I enjoy it, you know, contrasted with some contrasting notes of what the notes are here. So it is definitely a spicy experience, but lots of booze. Definitely loads of booze here with that rum and the dried fruits. And I think the dried fruits, I think I'm experiencing apricots, nectarines, maybe some prunes, because prunes or prune plums were featured as a note here in Halfeti Leather, and even though it was not a very fruity fragrance. So most likely there might be some, because I think what's happening is, as I said earlier, they're pulling and adding fragrance notes from the previous releases, and here I get some plumminess, but it's mostly the stone fruit, like apricots, nectarines, peaches, and things like that. So I like that contrast. I've seen it come up quite a bit in fragrances, and I enjoy it. It gives me this kind of cozy experience with a fragrance, even though it's all woods, you know. So I like that about it. A few other things, the spices in here, I do get some cinnamony touch and cardamom touch. Maybe perhaps a little bit of nutmeg as well comes in. So it gives you a very, very warm experience. And Halfeti is inspired by a city in Turkey, so the original. So I can see this happening with this kind of you know, fragrance creation with the warm notes and the booze and the fruits and all that kind of stuff. Definitely a winner for me. Definitely my favorite in the collection. The only reason it's my favorite, in contrast to the original Halfeti, I kind of got burnt out on that smell when I walked past PENHALIGON'S. But it's still a solid release if you like the idea of oud and rose combo with leather, smoke, incense fragrances. I do recommend this one if you've never sampled it. It's the original. It's what's got its start in this collection, and it's definitely a solid release. I know it has loads of fans. I get comments constantly on different videos saying this is their favorite rose oud fragrance. And again, to me, the original Halfeti has rose, but I wouldn't really call it a really rosy fragrance. It's more oud, less rose kind of a thing for me. And for me, this one also has loads of saffron, and of course leather comes in as well. And I think that's where the idea of Halfeti leather came in. So from here, they've taken the leather and they've amplified it against in this particular fragrance, and they've toned down the rose. And even though there's some rose here in Halfeti Leather, you do get that light plumminess in there. It's not as fruity as Halfeti Cedar, unfortunately, and I like that fruitiness. But you do experience that kind of like warm, pruny kind of dark fruits kind of an experience in contrast to the leather. And then of course there's some incense in here as well, and it adds a kind of a smoky experience. Not overwhelmingly smoky, but definitely there's some smokiness there, and it's a nice contrast. And then of course the fragrance kind of settles to a little ambery experience, amber woody experience, because all three of these fragrances are considered woody fragrances, but I would call the Halfeti Cedar a woody spicy. I guess they would all be woody spicy, but Halfeti Leather, on the other hand, is definitely a leather because it focuses on that leather note. But Halfeti and Halfeti Cedar, definitely a more woody, spicy experience. One more thing I should say about this one, Halfeti Cedar, I forgot to mention it earlier. They do mention and credit the notes of minerals. This is taken off of the Penhaligon's website. I went there to study their notes. Sadly, they don't list a lot of notes for me to kind of go off of, but they did mention minerals, and you definitely experience minerals here. There is kind of like a minerally kind of, not necessarily metallic, but minerals kind of experience. If you ever smelled anything like that, you can kind of recognize it in here. And it's a nice contrast to the fruits and the booze experience of the rum. Of course, I like this. The warm notes contrasted with woods and spices. Definitely a winner for me. So do check out Halfeti Cedar. It's out already. And you know what? One more thing I want to say is these bottles are really beautiful. They're really beautiful. I think the original came out as a clear bottle. I like it, and I think they've gone the next level and gave us some really cool looking bottles with Halfeti Leather and then of course Halfeti Cedar. So those are my thoughts on these two fragrances. I like Halfeti Cedar a little more than Halfeti Leather because I like the booziness, but I think it's a matter of everyone's taste. If you like something a little more leathery, you'll probably dig this one, and it does definitely have those light fruity touches of the plums. The plums are not so strong, and I kind of wanted them to be a little stronger here, and then in contrast to the leather, I felt like the leather was really elevated with this one. So that's why I think Halfeti Cedar to me is more of a winner. It's just a kind of fragrance I enjoy. And definitely going back to the idea of cedar being kind of a boring note. Yes, woods kind of can be boring. You have to add, you know, some contrasting notes to kind of make it a little more exciting. And I'll say it again, he's done a great job with this one. I really enjoying that whole contrast of the warm notes against, you know, the kind of boring cedar note. Anyway, Halfeti Cedar, that's all I have to say for this one. Let me know if you're a fan of Halfeti Cedar or the original Halfeti or even Halfeti Leather. And also let me know what your favorite fragrances are from the House of Penhaligon's. I'd like to find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today to watch my review of Halfeti Cedar. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.